honestly, I call it the disruptive habit trap.
Mm.
We start doing things, we make choices in our lives, and they're not necessarily beneficial for our health, but we don't realize it. And they're slowly, causing problems with our health, but we keep doing them and keep doing them and keep doing them. So that inflammation.
Awekenge, this is Mental Mythos, hosted by Asekho.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mental Mythos. I'm your host, Asekho. And before we dive into today's incredible conversation, I have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy what you hear today, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also helps others discover the valuable insights we share every week. And if you find today's episode particularly inspiring or insightful, don't forget to share it with your friends, family, or anyone you think could benefit from it. Thank you for your support. It truly means the world to us. Now, let's get back into our conversation.
When in terms of breaking the barrier between the mind and the body, what do you mean by that in terms of how did you come across that concept and what made you actually explore on it? What actually intrigued you in terms of exploring more about it, talking about it?
I have to go back to like my journey, because now that I look back on it, I see where this really all came together. I had some skin issues when I was younger, and then right after college, I was diagnosed with IBS. And at that time, I thought I was super healthy. I was an aerobics instructor. I was doing aerobic competitions, eating healthy. And I got this terrible IBS where I was literally in pain and had to get into the fetal position until the pain went away. It wasn't all the time, but when it came on, it was bad. And the doctors couldn't do anything. They just gave me a diagnosis, said, we don't know why, we don't really know what to do, but I can give you this pill.
Mm.
When I look back, now I realize that we get very caught up in our food and our exercise, and that's what health is all about.
Mm.
What I realized was going on with me at the time was that I had a lot of stress that I didn't even know was there. And I was going through a breakup, so I was very emotional, but I was really holding it all in. And all of that stress and all of those emotions that were getting just pushed down into the body that I wasn't allowing to come out completely affected my gut. And it caused the gut. It was kind of the whole reason that I had irritable bowel syndrome. And, at the time I had no idea. The doctors couldn't tell me, but that's when I really started to do my own research to figure out what is going on. I'm a why person. I'm a fix-it person. So I want to understand what's going on in the body. And that's what I like to help other people as well, is to help them understand what's going on in their own bodies and then give them that power back.
Mm. How was it possible that you spoke about in terms of eating healthier and being able to actually having a leaky gut? Because all I hear when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to being healthy, is that fact that you need to eat healthy, and so that you don't have a leaky gut. How is it possible that you can get a leaky gut from eating healthy?
Well, this is a great question. And I love this because this is the first thing that I teach everyone. It really doesn't matter. It does matter what you eat, but what matters more is how you eat. So I call it intentional eating. We must be in our parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest, in order for our digestion to be turned on and for us to actually be able to break down the food, take the nutrients out, and then absorb them. So even if you're eating the healthiest food, lots of vegetables all the time, but you're stressed out or you're multitasking or you're doing things while you're eating, your digestion is not going to be happening efficiently. So what I tell people is there's several things that you can do. First off, if you're making your own food, have fun with it. Dance around, sing. When you sing and when you hum, you're activating your vagus nerve, and that's going to quickly calm your body down because you want to be calm when you're eating. Once you're about to eat, sit down. Don't stand up and eat in the kitchen. Don't be doing 3 and 4 things. Really concentrate on your food and take about 6 to 10 long, slow breaths in and out. So again, you can stimulate that vagus nerve to calm your body down. Then small bites, chew, 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 swallow, and then know that your digestive system is turned on and it's able to work because your vagus nerve is stimulating your pancreas and your stomach to release all those enzymes that we need to actually break down our food so we can then absorb it and use it.
How, for example, let's take for example, let's say I'm cooking and I'm cooking a healthy dish and I am hungry at the same time. I'm hungry that I want this dish to actually be done now and I'm quite hungry. Does that, in terms of frustration of actually taking so long to actually the food that's cooking to actually in terms of being ready, does that actually affect your body?
It does. It's that energy. So if you're angry or mad or sad when you're making your food, again, your nervous system, it's all about your nervous system. So when you get angry, you are turning on that stress response, which is turning down your digestion. It's like taking a dimmer switch and turning that dimmer switch all the way down to low. So your digestion will happen, but it's not going to happen efficiently. It's not going to happen as well as it could if you were in that parasympathetic nervous system. And it's all about energy too. We want higher positive energy. That's always better for our body. Our bodies can heal and work efficiently. Our cells can function better when we have that positive energy.
And it's quite a fascinating concept because in a way of actually not understanding it and always being told that you need to help, as you've said earlier, that the only things that we know in terms of being healthy, it's exercising and eating healthy food. When it comes to such information, we are not aware. Why is it like that in terms of not being taught this kind of information when it comes to nutrition?
Well, I will tell you. So I went to PA school. I'm a physician assistant, and I knew at a young age that food had everything to do with health because I was an athlete and because I had my problems. I had hives and I knew the food was causing it. But when I went to PA school, they do not teach you that. They told us that food had very little to do with your health, which just did not make sense to me because I knew the whole concept. You're putting food into your mouth, you're breaking that food down. The vitamins and minerals from that food are what we make energy from. But if we're eating food that doesn't have vitamins and minerals in it, then how are we supposed to be able to make energy? So I think things are changing these days. I think medical schools are definitely teaching more about nutrition, but really until functional medicine was created, we didn't really understand the concept of how important food is to our health. Now we also know that it's not just food. It's not just exercise. Everything matters. All of our habits and our environment are very important. And I like to use the acronym SIMPLE because I want to make it easy on because when you say everything matters, that's kind of scary. So let's go through simple. The S is sleep. Good quality sleep, super important because that's when our bodies heal. I is ingestion. That means anything that we're putting into our bodies. So that means food, drinks, drugs, medication, how much air we breathe. And then M is movement. That's act. It doesn't have to be exercise. That kind of can scare people off. It's just activity. It's just movement. Our bodies were meant to move. P is peace. That's all about stress management. So learning how to shift your body from that stress response that most of us live in all the time to that parasympathetic rest and digest. It's also about positivity. We just talked a little bit about that. It's about your perception of where you are in the universe and how the universe treats you. And L is love, loving yourself, and also being open to love and support from other people. It's hugely important. And lastly, E is environmental exposure. We are exposed to so many chemicals and toxins these days, so we have to understand that. We have to choose ways to decrease the exposures and then also understand how we can eliminate them from the body. So that makes it a little bit easier to understand about lifestyle.
And I just want to focus on P, which is peace / positivity. And sometimes it's quite hard to actually shift your mindset in terms of from being negative to positive when it comes to actually eating. And some of the times we constantly think about that negative thing. What are some strategies that you can offer the audience to actually change their mindset when it comes to in terms of from moving from negative to positive?
Sure. So first off, I like to say we need to get out of our heads. We live in our heads. Things are happening and we're always doing and thinking and fixing. So we live up here all the time. But learning to come out of your head and come down into your heart and be grateful. One of the easiest ways is to just be grateful and to go through what you're grateful for. Because when you're in gratitude, you cannot be angry, sad, mad, all of those things. You're in gratitude, you're opening up your heart and you're in that heart space, you're in that love. So I think that is number one, the easiest way. I like to write things down. You can certainly think about it, but it just means more when you're writing it down. Then you can go back and read it. You've got kind of that hard copy. So that's very, very important, I think. I also think for a lot of people, mantras can be very nice, especially because I work with a lot of women and I find that women truly, they don't love themselves. They have so much negative talk in their heads about themselves that they don't truly love themselves. So we do things like a mirror exercise where they look into the mirror and they say, whatever mantra they feel like. I try to ask the questions like, what is it that you feel like you don't have? And then we bring that into the mantra. So I am powerful. I am strong. I am beautiful, whatever that is for people. And I love for people to do that while they're driving. Just repeat the mantra over and over again. The more it's repeated, the more it's said, the more you hear it, the more it gets into the wiring of the brain and your brain believes it. So I think those are two very easy things. But we don't want to forget that there's that connection between the gut and the brain. So sometimes we'll find it difficult to get out of the negativity. It may be because their gut, something's going on in their gut.
And recently I was I'm watching an episode by Stephen Ballard, the host of A Diary of a CEO, and he had Dr. Huberman, and Dr. Huberman always speaks about the sunlight and how it is important to actually health. How is it when it comes to, in terms of food, when it comes to nutrition, the way that in terms of being happier, how does the circadian rhythm play a role within, in terms of within the acronym of SIMPLE? How does it actually play a role within in terms of SIMPLE acronym? I don't know if you got my question.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, so the circadian rhythm is the way our body wants to work on a circadian rhythm. It works with that light and that dark cycle. So that's why, yes, getting out in the light in the beginning of the day is super, super important, because that then, increases the cortisol level, decreases the melatonin, and so our bodies can get ready for the day. So that sleep is part of the circadian rhythm. So that's part of SIMPLE. So as we know, and we've seen in lots of research, when people work during the night and sleep during the day, it throws off their circadian rhythms, and they usually have health issues because that circadian rhythm is not regulated. So getting on a good sleep cycle, going to bed at 10 o'clock at night, getting up at 6 o'clock. That's super important because, again, we have chemicals in our body. We have that melatonin that increases at night when the sun goes down, and that gets our body ready for sleep. So if we aren't going to bed until 12, 1 or 2, it's throwing off everything. We have kind of this cycle where our body heals during the night, and there's specific organs that work and kind of clean themselves out during the night. But if you're not asleep, then those things aren't happening as well as they. So again, that's part of that circadian rhythm.
And you spoke about intuitive eating and when we started, and how is it different compared to your traditional dieting? Because when it comes to diets, and people say they are healthy, some say they are not healthy, whereas people are eating only plants, or where people are only eating only protein, and it really scales, whereas people are not quite sure, okay, what of diet should I choose? How is intuitive eating different from that?
So I will say that everyone is different. Everyone is unique, and that's a big part of functional medicine. So there is no cookie cutter way of eating. There is no diet that's best for everyone. So we do have to look at what is going on in the body and kind of figure that out. However, our bodies need phytonutrients, plants, the vitamins and the minerals, because that is what we need to make energy in the Krebs cycle. So we do need, some people are taking lots of supplements. It's best to get those from your food. So if you choose to eat animal protein or just plants, the majority of the nutrients that we need come from plants. So I do think that is a very important part of it. Going back to getting into your heart, I feel very strongly that our bodies tell us what they need. Okay. So when we're in our head all day long and we're trying to figure out what diet to eat and what food to eat, we're not asking our body. We're not listening to our body. So if we can find that time during the day where we allow ourselves to move out of our head and into our heart, we can actually ask our bodies what they need, and our bodies will tell us.
How do
That's
you do that?
intuitive eating of it.
Because I was actually about to get into that in terms of listening to your body, because most of the time I have this thing after I have eaten and I feel like I'm hungry, and in a way of not actually knowing, okay, what does this point my body wants. And I end up listening to my brain, because my brain actually keeps on reminding me, oh flip, you just ate. And it's quite difficult to someone that is not used to actually listening to their body of saying, no, you need to eat this and this and this. This is what I actually need. What are some types of steps in order for ones to actually listen to actually actually know that their body needs this certain thing now?
Okay. So first I want to go back and I want to talk about the intentional eating that I was talking about before, because if you're still feeling hungry after you eat, one important thing is to make sure that you are eating slowly. And so small bites. We have a tendency to be, doing things. We eat, we chew like twice, we pick up a drink, we drink it down and gulp our food down. And I mean, we don't mean to be doing it. It's just kind of what we do. And so when that happens, it doesn't give time for the gut to go up and talk to the brain, and the brain to talk to the gut and say, okay, you're full. You can stop eating. So there is that communication between the gut and the brain that needs to happen. So I would recommend doing that intentional eating, slowing down, smaller bites, chewing until it's really liquid, and then swallowing. And then usually it can take 10 to 15 minutes for the gut to then, talk to the brain and tell the brain, okay, you're full. You've got enough food in the stomach, and then you can start to feel full. So that may be just something important for you to think about and realize. It can be tough for a lot of people to slow down when they eat. They don't even realize it, because for years they've been in the car doing 3 and 4 things during lunch. So, I mean, that's one of the things that most of my clients come back and say, it's really tough to do that. To take some time. So that's number one. Number two is I like to do, I call them peaceful pauses with my clients. So every time we meet, it's like a small meditation where I help clients move out of their head and into their heart. It's kind of a visualization. And so I think when people have that and they can go back to that, and that makes it easier for them to make it a habit, to start doing that every day, to kind of see how it feels to get out of your brain and let your brain, rest and move down into this heart space and feel. It's all about feeling instead of thinking. So it can take time. And that's why sometimes it's easier to work with somebody and have somebody help you through it, because it may be very different than what you've been doing for many years.
And we have this perception of thinking that once we see something online and say that I can replicate that, and not actually knowing that it takes more than that. And you never know, the person behind the camera is actually assisted by a certain person that, okay, you should eat like this and this and this and this. And it's something that goes with in terms of, we think that we know everything. And for us knowing everything, we tend to actually say that when one wants to actually help us, say that, no, I'm good. Actually, I follow this certain person online, so they know what they're talking about. They have proven it. Not realizing that you really need other people to actually tell you that this thing is wrong for your body. And sometimes it's quite difficult to actually know what's wrong for your body, because what the reason why I'm raising this thing, and probably the audience will actually get tired of me saying this, because I usually speak about how I actually found out that me and dairy are not friends, because there was this one time I was actually eating cereals, and I realized that my stomach was something wrong with it. And I decided, okay, let me not actually use milk for a certain time, all the time. And after I have not been using it, I realized, oh flip, I was in a way of lactose intolerant when it comes to milk, and I found that difficult because at some point that, in all honesty, it's hard to stop something that you've been doing it for years, because I've been drinking milk for years. I even drank it, not realizing that it was part of it that actually made my stomach grow a lot. And I realized I actually need to actually learn more about this. And that's why I keep on, actually I had a series on different, in terms of nutrition and in terms of how important is nutrition. I spoke about gut health. I spoke about vitamin A toxicity. I spoke about in a lot of things also in when it comes to the gut, how it many people actually refer it to as the first brain of a, it should be your first brain. And some people, one thing I realized, some people actually not aware of how important is gut health and how important is gut it is the gut brain. And my following question is goes to overthinking things. As human beings, we overthink everything, and even when it comes to food, we overthink the fact that, oh, flip, I should eat this. No, I shouldn't eat this because it causes this and this and this and this, and not actually knowing what we actually say to eat nowadays. Because once we start eating this thing, a person on actually, I came across this video whereas as a guy was eating cereals, and he actually showed that an influencer saying that, did you know that cereals are bad for you? And also he showed a lot of things, and also including water, and saying that water contains this and this and this, that means that is wrong for your body. So in terms of how can we move away from that mental chatter, in terms of that thing of beliefs of overthinking things, of following influencers online, and connect more with our body?
Well, I think so. I talk to busy women all the time. I call it the superwoman paradox. These are women who, from an early age, have been doing for people. They have a busy job, they have family, they cook, they put dinner on the table. So they're always doing things. So the paradox is that that's great that they're doing things and they're successful, but it's also affecting their health because they're not taking care of themselves. So at some point, unfortunately in life, if you're not really taking care of your health, something is going to happen. I find that women don't listen to their bodies. They have a push through mentality because that's what gets them. That's how they think they're successful in life. So they need to do the same thing with their health. But those symptoms, any kind of feeling that you're getting from your body, that is your body's way of telling you that there's an imbalance, that there's something wrong inside. It's like a little baby. Little babies can't talk, so they can really only cry. And so they cry to try to tell us what's going on. Our bodies can't actually tell us, so they give us these symptoms. And so we really need to begin to listen to the body, to see these symptoms as red flags that something isn't going right, that there's an imbalance in the body, because our body is meant to heal itself. Our bodies are beautiful. They can heal themselves if we take care of them. But when there's an imbalance in the body starts to have difficulty healing itself. And that's when these symptoms come up. So again, that's what I really, help people understand is listen, like when those symptoms are there, listen to the body, and then we can figure out what's going on. As far as what you said about your issues with dairy, we also want to realize that things change in life. We go through stages in our lifetime. So when we're younger, yes, we may be able to eat dairy with no problem. But as we get older, we start to lose the enzyme that breaks down the lactose. The lactase we no longer make and have in our body. So we start to have problems. So if you realize that and you see that, okay, this is just kind of a new stage in my life where I'm not going to be able to eat that and be okay with it, then you can start playing around with other foods. Now there's so many other milk options. You can move over now. So now we're starting to kind of catch up with what's going on. So that's what I'm hoping that medicine in the future will have more and more functional medicine, because I think if that is what people see and understand, then they're more willing to listen to their bodies. What everyone is used to is being handed a prescription when they go to the doctor. This is your magic. This is this, quick fix. When you do this, you're going to be fine. And we know that that's really not the case. It's really kind of masking the symptoms. It's kind of a Band-Aid. So when medicine starts to change more into functional medicine, where we're talking about root causes and we're talking about why, we're talking about lifestyle and we're talking about habits, I think people are going to be more willing to accept that.
And in terms of when it comes to speaking about nutrition, speaking about eating food, and one thing that we run away from whenever we spoke about subscription when it comes to pills, whenever one has, I would say, you've been diagnosed with mental health illness, and we run away. I feel like there is a huge, I would say, let me rephrase my question. I feel like there's this thing that psychologists don't do, is the fact of actually trying to find the root cause of a certain thing and being able to actually say that, have you tried eating this way and this way and this way? And through the guest that I had, is the fact that one pattern that I've seen when it comes to food is the fact that in some sort of way, food actually helps when it comes to depression, mostly depression, anxiety, things like that. Some of those mental health illnesses, in terms of actually being in that state of flip. After I've eaten this way, I have seen it in a different way. I actually feeling better. It's something that I have actually realized. And also, another thing is the fact that of not actually going to the root cause, actually curing the symptom when it comes to mental health problems. And one thing, and it's something that I've heard about functional medicine, functional in terms of in that practice of people not actually not treating the root cause, but actually treating the symptom. One of the things that I've heard. And in terms of mindfulness, this word mindfulness, I keep on hearing it, and it's a word that I've always knew, but actually get its grasp from Sam Harris when he was on Modern Wisdom. And so I just want to ask, in terms of when it comes to mindfulness, how have mindfulness techniques helped you become more attuned to your body's signals and needs?
It's completely changed everything for me. And it wasn't until I found yoga that it really made the biggest difference. Because of this mind-body connection, 95% of our serotonin is actually made in our gut. And that is the neurotransmitter that improves our mood. It helps with cravings. And, we have to understand that, what we eat, how we eat, the health of our gut is super important. I feel like our gut health is the anchor to our overall health. I start in the gut no matter what problem someone is having, no matter what health issue. We always start in the gut. Mindfulness in yoga, which I love because I was an athlete up through college. And, when you're an athlete, you're used to sweating and running, and you're used to aerobic activity. And yoga is just as difficult. You're still sweating, but you're controlling your breathing. And when you're controlling your breathing, you are putting yourself in that parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest. And when you learn to even close your eyes and just go inside and not look at yourself in the mirror and not worry about what you look like when you're making your poses and not worry about anybody else around you, it is an amazing experience. And it really changes everything about how you feel about your body and your health. So, I hope that there's something out. There's lots of different things that can do that. It doesn't have to be yoga. It can be meditation. It can be qigong. It can be tai chi. It can be, swimming or other things. Even hobbies can do that type of thing where you're in your parasympathetic nervous system and you're calm, but you're not in your thinking brain. You're getting out of your thinking brain and you're in your senses. You're allowing yourself to feel. That's what mindfulness is really all about. It's using your senses. It's feeling, it's looking, smelling, hearing, and really taking yourself out of that thinking brain and into your senses. That's probably the easiest way to kind of explain that.
And in terms of when it comes to awareness, and it's something that it's quite important to actually say that, okay, I know what I'm eating. I'm not fast pacing when it comes to eating. As you mentioned that it takes 2 spoons every time and get a drink of water or whatever you drink and decide, nah, I'm good. And not actually realizing that it actually messes up with your gut health and it actually ends up in terms of a leaky gut. How does one actually take that pivotal moment of saying that, okay, let me try this. Maybe it could help me.
I think that's very different for different people. I think a lot of people have to, end up going to the doctor and getting a diagnosis. I think it might be something happened to their parents or they watched a friend through something. That's kind of human nature sometimes is we think we're fine until something really stops us. And that kind of goes back to the symptoms. I have a lot of people talk to me about I have this symptom and that symptom, and they just want that one thing. They want that pill. They want that quick fix to take their symptoms away. But it's so much bigger than that. When you have those symptoms, you're out of balance. And if you keep continuing that like that for years and years, then you're moving towards disease and more issues. And so sometimes it takes getting that diagnosis of a disease for people to really open up their eyes. I always say, as people get older, people are always like, oh, I'm getting old. It's horrible. I'm having pain every day. Honestly, I call it the disruptive habit trap. We start doing things, we make choices in our lives, and they're not necessarily beneficial for our health, but we don't realize it. And they're slowly causing problems with our health, but we keep doing them and keep doing them and keep doing them. So that inflammation is increasing in our health. And as we get older, now it's been, 20 years since you've been doing that, the body hasn't been able to heal itself and it kind of catches up to you. And that's why you start having those issues. So it's not necessarily age. It's really how we're treating our bodies. And also every year, we're getting more and more chemicals and toxins from the environment, from different foods, from agriculture, with pesticides. So even though we're progressing in life, in a way, some things aren't progressing. Some things are actually more detrimental to our health than we realize. So now we're trying to find ways to kind of pull these toxins out of our bodies. Don't, then again, as time moves on, then it starts to cause issues like Parkinson's disease and other.
It's funny that you speak about chemicals. You spoke about in terms of serotonin, and most people probably out there, I'm not quite sure about the States, but here in South Africa, most people actually are unaware of the chemicals in terms of I would say they still have this belief that depression and anxiety. Depression mostly is caused by the imbalance of the chemicals in the brain. And through my research, through probably some few guests that I had, and also through a book that I'm currently listening, and which is Lost Connection, and it really speaks about how the light that has been created by these pharmaceutical companies, whereas they want to sell these antidepressants, that there's no such thing as the chemical imbalance. And what's your take on that as someone that is big on nutrition and is big on helping women to find in terms of actually finding the balance of taking care of their families, and even though they work in their fast-pacing business world, and focus on their mental well-being and also on their nutrition?
So first off, I think that what's missed in conventional medicine when we talk about mental health is looking at the gut. We don't really hear anybody talk about this gut-brain connection, that so much of what's going on in the gut is communicating to the brain and affecting the chemicals and, the hormones and the neurotransmitters in the brain that affect the mood and the depression. It is definitely an important thing to think about, because oftentimes when I have a client who we start working on their gut health, their depression, their sadness, it begins to go away as we figure out, because I do tests, so I really know what's going on in the gut as far as bacterial infections, yeast infections, maybe there's parasites, maybe there's not enough enzymes. So the microbiome is another thing we need to talk about when we talk about the brain, because that communication is there. And so when I hear that somebody has issues with mental health, I want to go straight to the gut. I don't want to give them, I don't want to try to give them serotonin in a pill. I want to look at their gut. Now, of course, we also have to look at past thoughts and beliefs and patterns, because sometimes when people have trauma in the past and it gets kind of, stuck in the body and it hasn't been worked through, that can also be something to look at. But I think we need to really start with gut health when we talk about mental health.
Thanks so much for that answer. And as we wrap up, and I just wanna, in terms of quickly dive deeply on rewiring health habits, and in terms of the reason why I'm bringing this up is the fact that sometimes we have these bad habits, bad habits, and it's quite hard for us to actually change those things, because we are not taught how to actually change those unhealthy habits, or in terms of, or even rewiring our brain. So definitely some of us who are actually unaware of, actually we can rewire our brain. And again, Dr. Huberman really spoke a lot about the neuroplasticity, as he said that the brain can actually adopt whenever you don't know something. It's easy for the brain to adopt that thing, and actually the more you do it, the more the brain would actually register it. So in terms of breaking old habits, how does one do it? How is it so, in terms of, you see the books like, in terms of atomic habits really speaks about habits, how do you break them? As much as that book talks about habits, your generic habits, but when it comes to those body habits of overeating, in terms of not knowing, in terms of always stress when it comes to eating, how do you break those habits?
So first off, what I ask is why. I ask a lot of questions. Why? Why do you choose to do that? Why is that something that you're doing? So we really need to figure out how those patterns first started. Second, I like to educate clients on what's truly going on. So when you do this is what happens in the body, and then this is what happens with your health. So just understanding things at least they can maybe stop and make the choice. They can think about that before they make that choice. But it's really about rewiring. It's about, what do you want? When I ask my clients what they want in the beginning of when I'm working with them, a lot of times they don't know. They're so busy in their head doing the things that they want to do every day. They don't think about what they want and what they need. So I have them write out a love list of things that make them happy. They do something on that list every day. So again, it's, what do you want? And then what's going to be the easiest way for you to get there that fits into your schedule? And then we kind of come up with what these new habits would be. And it really depended on the person, because if you try to give them too many things to change at once, then it's not going to work. So some people do well like one at a time. It really kind of have to get into that person's psyche and kind of understand the way they work best. And then it's really just having them start the new habit and do it every day and continue to do it. And then it can become a habit. And then it's like brushing our teeth. It's just something that they're going to do. A long roundabout answer, but it's dependent on the person. I don't think there's one way for everyone to do it.
Definitely. It actually, I also have this belief that whenever one actually comes across something, and just because that you have how one has helped a certain person that way, that doesn't mean I also will be helped that the same way. Because as something that I actually observe is the fact that we as individuals are very different. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate your insight. And it actually, this conversation actually has enlightened me more on when it comes to the gut health and the microbiome. And it really was quite interesting. And it's something that I believe that it's something that I needed to hear, because as I continue in terms of learning these new concepts with what is actually, how impact does the body have on our mental well-being, on our brain, and in terms of mostly on gut health, what it actually means to us, to individuals. And hopefully the audience will find this specific episode very educational and informative, because that's the goal, is actually doing podcast episodes that are very informative. So again, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And I hope that you have a great day.